It's February already. February. It's February. 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 It's February already. February. Technically, it's February. February. It's February already. 1 month of the year down. Can you believe it? Feb here in Australia is, of course, still summer. Usually the hottest month of the year, so it is just a matter of trying to keep that veggie patch alive. Lots of water, that is my tip to you. Just because it is still summer doesn't mean we can't do some forward thinking. You may not think so, we can actually start sowing some seed for the cooler months. So in this video, I'm going to go through some of the seeds I can start sowing, and you, dear watcher, can also start sowing now. Now let's get growing. I've gone through my seed collection, got my little stash of seeds that I'm going to start sowing, and I'm going to share with you what they are. First up in my little collection of seeds here are my brassicas. So that includes a whole range of different veg. First up is my cabbage, or cabbages. I'm going with the red mini cabbage. I like a mini cabbage because whoever can use a whole cabbage when they're cooking? You know, there's only so much cabbage you can cook with at one time, unless you're making a huge sauerkraut or something like that. Next, we have the old Brussels sprouts. If I could go back in time and say to my younger self, hey, Michael, in the future, you're going to be growing Brussels sprouts and eating them and enjoying them, I would not have believed it. But here we are, Brussels sprouts. The Brassica, that in my opinion is probably least favourite with most people. I'm not sure, you let me know in the comments if you enjoy it, but it is the old cauliflower. The sad sibling to the humble broccoli, I would say. But hey, douse it in some cheese, bake it in the oven, and you've got a tasty, cheesy cauliflower. Speaking of broccoli, they are next in my collection. I've got a couple of varieties. I've got the green sprouting broccoli, which is almost like a broccolini, so quite a small little floret, and you can eat the stem as well. Fry it up, add it to a stir fry, something yummy like that. I'm also going to grow the Romanesco broccoli. Now, we might have an argument about what it's called. A lot of people call it a cauliflower, some people call it a broccoli. I think it's actually a bit of a hybrid between both, but this one says broccoli, so I'm going to go with broccoli. It is that lime green, fractal patterned floret that is very, very ornamental, looks very cool, but it is also edible. I have a couple more in the Brassica collection. Kohlrabi. Have you grown a kohlrabi before? I hadn't ever heard of kohlrabi or seen them until I was a member at my local community garden a couple of years ago. And they are very funky looking, not a root vegetable, but it has a swollen stem to it, and then the very brassica-like leaves at the top, and you can actually eat all parts of it. I'm going to put a picture right here. And lastly, we have the good old kale. Again, there can be arguments about whether people like kale or not, but I like to just add a bit of kale to a morning smoothie just to get some of those greens in. And this one's a dwarf one, kale blue curled dwarf variety. Again, I like a good dwarf variety because kale can just grow and grow and grow, and you just don't know what to do with it all, so it ends up going to waste or to the chickens. So go for a dwarf variety, I say. Moving on from the brassicas, something a bit greener and leafier is the trusty silver beet, or chard, depending on where you are in the world. A good substitute for spinach. I generally always use silver beet over spinach. It grows a lot easier. I think it has a lot less pests and diseases attached to it. and it just grows and grows and grows. So you can just keep picking the outer leaves and using it exactly the same as you would use spinach. That is my go-to winter green. Now I could just go on and on, but I'm not going to name every single winter veggie. I'll give you a couple more. The good old root veg, beetroot and carrots. They're a good trusty staple of the winter garden. It's better to sow these directly in the soil rather than in punnets because they don't like root disturbance too much. So definitely direct sow those into your garden. Closing my little seed box for the time being. That is plenty of things to start sowing now, just at the beginning of Feb. As the month continues on, we can start sowing so many other things as the weather starts to cool down. In regards to sowing your seeds, I might do a future video on that, but I wouldn't be sowing them in a greenhouse or a little mini greenhouse that you can get. It's probably too hot for that. They will come up fairly quickly, just out in the open, somewhere bright but not in direct sun. Otherwise those tiny little seedlings are just going to fry, and the little punnets that you sow them in will just dry out really quickly. You will need to keep them well watered, have them sitting in a tray that you can just have a little centimetre or so of water in the bottom so that they can draw up that moisture as they need it. That'll do it for today's video, but I would love to know, obviously I am in Australia, but I'm sure I have viewers from around the world. Let me know in the comments either where in Australia you're watching from or where around the world you are watching from as well. I would love to get some insight into that. But as always, I hope you found some value in this, and we'll see you next week. Bye.